Good morning, my creative friends. Dr. Minette Riordan here. This is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette. I'm super excited to be here with all of you this morning with my crazy lights I keep fussing with. If you're brand new to Painting in Your PJs, welcome. I am in my pajamas most mornings. And if I'm lucky, most of the day, I love comfy clothes. I love making art. Pretty much everything I own is covered in paint, including me, and that's the way I like it. So my channel is all about using art as a creative process for self-discovery, for personal growth, and for really befriending our inner critic, for calming down that voice within that is constantly telling us that our work isn't good enough, why bother, it's not perfect. And I was looking at the page that I created on Tuesday about St. Francis and the peace prayer. If you haven't watched that, you can go check that out in the list of live videos. And I started flipping through images and going, oh, it needs something, it's not quite right. And I found myself going, Minette, relax, take a breath. It's all okay. And it made me realize how often I get the question from people, how do you know when a page is finished? So that's what I want to talk about today as we dive in to finish a page that I started last week. So before we dive into all of that, I wanted to share with you, I've been having so much fun making sample inspiration cards. These don't have their words on them yet, but these inspiration cards are one of the many creative activities we will be doing at my fall retreat, the Wisdom and Wonder Retreat, which is all about using art as a creative process to connect to your inner wise woman. And these represent some of the 6 keys of a creative life: rest, play, refuge, connection, wisdom. And I've been having more fun working on these samples and connecting to my own creative energy in a different way using a variety of watercolor on handmade paper, collage, and a lot of texture. As you can see, I've become a little bit addicted to working with texture lately. But if you're curious about how to use art as a creative process for connecting to intuition, for deepening your relationship with yourself, if you love the Rocky Mountains or you've never been to Rocky Mountain National Park, I want to encourage you to check out the Wisdom and Wonder Retreat. That link is in the description of the video. I'm also going to stick it over here in the comments and invite you to just take a look. The early bird pricing, you save $300. That's in effect until until August 15th. And I'm super excited. It's going to include a tour of Rocky Mountain National Park, some amazing food, some beautiful slow stitching projects, and some time spent outside, some collage. We're going to be painting on fabric. We have so much fun in store to share with you the first weekend in October, October 3rd through I think it's the 6th, up in beautiful Estes Park, Colorado, which is the gateway to Rocky Mountain National Park. So I would love to come and have you join me live in person, face to face. Hi, Polly. Hi, Yvonne. In Rocky Mountain National Park, and take a look at the page and see if it resonates with you. Would love to have you there. All right, so I'm going to put those away. And I was thinking about the theme. I know what I want to do today is to finish the page that I started last week and wanted to add some slow stitching onto my aunt's quilt square. And before I got there, I was just cleaning up my desk and cleaning up my space and, kind of looking at this page going, but wait, it needs more animals and it needs more this and it needs more that. And it made me rush to get here on time this morning. And I'm like, Minette, take a breath. Just like we did on Tuesday when we started this page, like I'm rushing into these things and rushing into the experience. And I just needed to remember to slow down. There's a lot going on. By the way, I want to say just thank you so much to everyone that has reached out with emails, phone calls, texts, and messages about the fire near our home. It is still very smoky here, but the fire has shifted directions and is moving away from all of the homes and away from town. And so there's still danger, but there's been no wind this week, which has really kept the fire from spreading too far. So we are safe. We are still in our home and still just expressing deep gratitude to all of the firefighters in the rocky terrain, forested terrain where they're fighting fires. It's very dangerous, almost impossible to do on foot. So it's a lot of airplane work. So just deep gratitude, prayers for all the firefighters, as well as for all the families that are still in the path of the fire to the north of us up the canyon. And so as I'm sitting here thinking about all these things, about gratitude, about mindfulness, about pausing and catching my breath, and then all of a sudden going into a little bit of judgment around, but wait, it needs this and it needs that. And, I started pulling images and I'm like, Minette, let it go for the moment. Let it go for the moment. And I get this question all the time. So this was the page I started on Tuesday, and I'm calling it done for now. What I love about mixed media art journaling, or visual journaling as I like to call it, is that it never has to be done. It only needs to be done for now. So I'm calling this page done for now because I'm not certain it's complete. And I get that question all the time. How do I know when a page or a canvas or a poem, how do you know when it's finished? And the reason I think that we struggle with this, and this journal is getting super, super full and juicy, and it's going to very soon need some kind of closure on it. And I may overnight go stick it in my book press and press it down. I love how fat this journal is getting. But I think the reason that we struggle with knowing when a page is finished or not is because we are struggling with perfectionism. We're struggling with trying to get it right. We are struggling with having this image in our head, and what's on the page never looks quite like what's in our head. And so it can get us really caught up in overthinking what we're creating on the page. All right, I'm going to move my coffee onto my awesome coffee warmer that my wonderful friend Marion gave me. Keep my cup of coffee hot. Those cute little mushrooms over there underneath the coffee warmer. I'm just trying to make some space because this is a bigger journal. I tried to clean up my desk a little bit this morning. And so I'm working in my bigger book today because I had a plan in mind that I started last week for using one of my aunt's quilt squares that I've been talking about for the last week. And I've had just so much fun sitting, watching the Olympics in the evening. And I haven't worked on it every evening, but finally last night I'm like, okay, I need to finish this because I want to finish that spread in my page. I added some seed stitches to her skirt and just some little chain stitches and outlines to just give it a little bit of texture for the page. I absolutely love this particular angel. Again, love that it's signed by my favorite aunt. And I love that she's looking through binoculars and she's barefoot and she's clearly out in the wilderness, maybe doing some bird watching, which is one of our favorite things to do. And so I have all the pieces of this page here already. Now I have to remember how they all, and maybe some extra pages. Now I have to remember how they all went together, and maybe they will come together even better than they were before. And I love incorporating slow stitching into my journal. That was such a great discovery for me personally. I'm going to just zoom out there a little bit so you can see the whole page and my messy desk. I seem to have accrued like just a lot of little bits and pieces of things. Okay, don't think we need that piece of paper. I'm also feeling like I need to get my hands a little painty this morning, but we'll see where we get to with this one. My hope is it's going to come together pretty quickly. And I am creating this on this gorgeous piece of handmade paper that I purchased from Ali Manning and Vintage Page Designs. And I love this sage green. It's absolutely perfect. And I'm looking at this wondering if I want to glue this down. I could tape it down, and I could run it over to my sewing machine and stitch it down. This is super thick paper, so it might be a little challenging to stitch. I could even have some fun doing a frame stitch around the outside of this that looks like it's stitched together, but then glue it together. And that's all feeling a little bit fussy this morning. So I think I am just going to glue her down. If I had my double stick tape, I might even tape it down, but I'm going to try some glue sticks, see where we get to. I love her. And so when I think about how do we know when a page is finished, I think the first thing is to touch in with how you're feeling about the page. How are you feeling about the page? And I always like to make some notes when I have these ideas because it might turn into a blog post or something later. So I think that first step is, how am I feeling about the page? Did I give myself time to step away? And look again with fresh eyes. I've talked about this before. Is the voice in my head judging, criticizing, or is it discerning? We can look at a piece of art through discernment and through a healthy critical eye. And when we look at it through a healthy critical eye, then we start to look for elements of design, right? Are we noticing what's wrong and what's right? I often ask, what's it missing? So we can look at contrast, variety, color balance, texture. Does it have a great focal point that draws my eye? Like my angel here is clearly going to be the focal point of this page. Does it have like one focal point that draws the eye? These are questions related to discernment and having an artist eye. They're not related to that feeling of judgment of I'm a terrible artist or this doesn't look anything like it looks in my head, or I'm never going to get this. Why bother? Our inner critic can get so loud and fussy. I have no idea if glue stick is going to work on fabric, but we're going to find out. And it gets nitpicky. And then we go into perfectionism. And the reason that we go into perfectionism is because we're afraid of being judged, even though often we are our own worst critics, right? We are our own worst critics. And so start to ask yourself different questions. And I'm gonna, this piece of fabric is not completely straight, but I didn't really want to trim this one up. I wanted to kind of keep it as is, smooth that out. I just glued around the edges. So I'm curious if you're listening live or even if you come around later and catch the replay, how do you decide when a piece is finished? Sometimes I simply get tired of a piece and I don't want to work on it anymore. So I start to really pay attention to how am I feeling in my body, right? How am I feeling in my body? Am I rushing to get it done because I have limited time to work on a piece? Um, let's see. Am I rushing? Am I feeling anxious? Am I being, overly finicky? And asking that question, am I willing to walk away and give this some time? Because often when I walk away from a piece and come back and look at it an hour or a day, sometimes weeks later, that's when the true magic happens. That's when I really see what a piece needs. Like when I'm working on my large canvases, I have a new painting in progress on the other side of the studio, and I didn't get far into it, and I'm feeling a little stuck. And I'm excited to have some time this weekend to get back to it. So it's already just been sitting on my easel untouched since last weekend, but it sits where I can see it all day, every day from my desk or when I walk down the stairs into my studio. And so I'm present to what's not working here, or I'm present to what do I want to try next? What do I want to try next? But sometimes time is the biggest gift to ourselves. And my favorite mantra when I get to a place where it feels complete is it's done for now. When we're working in an art journal or on a canvas, unless, it's a commission piece that we're trying to get out the door, the biggest gift we can give ourselves is the mantra, it's done for now. Right? Because we can always come back to it. I have paintings that hang on the wall for months, and then I will just keep looking at them until I figure out what it is that's missing, right? I figure out what it is that it's missing. So I'm noticing here, right, all of a sudden there's all this heaviness on this side of the page, right? My eye is in this kind of funky diagonal direction. And I think originally I intended that to go over here, but what I'm noticing is I need that third thing on this side that's going to create some balance on the page, right? It's just going to create some balance on the page. And I love when a page comes together that's really simple. Sometimes I get started on a page and think, oh, this is gonna go really fast. This is gonna be really easy. And then that's not exactly what happens. It takes hours or days, and I have to let the art be my guide, right? I think I have to let the art be my guide. So much of our creative practice, especially the way that I love to make art, it's very intuitive, right? And it is not something that is a step by step, follow the instructions, do this, do that. There's a lot of teachers who teach that way. That's not me. Okay, this had words. I think it said butterfly time, and I've lost one of the other words. Those are different words. All right, the words will turn up. This is what happens when you're working in a small space, as things get moved around. And somehow I feel like she's part of the story here, that somehow this is me connecting to that aspect of myself, right, that is divine, that reveres nature. And all of a sudden it feels like a little bit of a busier page, but it feels like a truer part of the story, right? There's something simple here that also feels good, but it doesn't feel like the story is complete. So now I have to look at this through the lens of, okay, with creative discernment, maybe this doesn't make sense. But I'm not here to make something that is beautiful, even though I love this page. I am here, hi Georgia, to really make something that is meaningful, that represents simply a moment in time of how am I feeling? What am I thinking about? What feels important to me right now here at this moment? All right, you're in the way. All right, sipping my coffee before it gets cold. Somewhere I had the word dreams, I think is what it said. And this was stuck in here too. And I think initially maybe some of that was going to go behind, but that didn't make it on the page. And I love this beautiful little cardinal stamp. And when I was younger and we still sent lots of cards and letters, I used to always send letters and birthday cards and Valentine's cards and all the other holidays to my grandmother. And my grandmother lived with my aunt until she passed away. And my grandmother and then my aunt saved all those cards and gave them back to me at one point, which was really lovely. So I kind of like there's again these pieces that I'm creating with these quilt squares, and I think I'm going to stitch on more of them because I've really loved doing that, have been about nostalgia. It's almost like, what is she looking at? So it's not quite the right colors, it doesn't quite fit. Also love these little mushroom dudes, but again, they're just not quite right. And so this is where I'm in that feeling a little fussy and particular about the page, really wanting that other word, and it will turn up. But I also noticed that this is from one of our Sacred Circle designs, and this phrase really, really fit. Polly, that's a really interesting perspective. I love that. And I can't tell you how many times someone has offered me an idea here live on the show that has been exactly what a piece needed that I couldn't see, right? That someone else could see from that outsider's perspective, right? So allowing feedback from others is valuable and sometimes can be intimidating. Like I had to learn not to get offended when particularly a husband or my mom would say something about my art, but to take it simply as feedback, not judgment, right? And I don't feel that way about people here on the live show. Like I'm detached. I can take your advice or not. But I love that idea of how can we allow, right, someone else to participate in the process. And for me, especially when I'm working in an art journal like I am now, these are personal pieces. They're not intended for public consumption. And even though I'm creating them very publicly, I'm mindful of this is for me, right? And I think that can also allow us to let go of any judgment when we say, this is just for me. Or James Bond, for my eyes only, right? I know James Bond was for your eyes only, but right, when this is for my eyes only, I feel different about it. It has a different energy. Good morning, Judy. Welcome. So these are some of the questions that I ask myself, and I'm going to add Polly's. I'm going to put your name in here. Can I spell participation from the viewer's imagination? That's a beautiful thought. And it makes me think about something like the Mona Lisa. I don't know if anybody watched the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games and the fun they had with the minions stealing the Mona Lisa, and which was hilarious. And so you think about a famous piece like the Mona Lisa. Well, what if, excuse me, in Da Vinci's eyes, that piece wasn't complete? Right? If we look at other people's canvases through that lens or pages in their art journals about if I were going to add one thing or change one thing, what might that be? Right? What might that be? And all right. Feeling like, so my eye is kind of rolling around here and I still want, it needs one more little something something up here to feel like there's sort of this beautiful flow around our character here. And it might be another butterfly, it might be a bird. And when I was in Portland this summer, we went to Powell's Books, which is one of my most favorite bookstores, and I will go out of my way to have time to spend at Powell's. And I found this gorgeous book of collaging the botanical world, and it's got some great butterflies in it and mushrooms. And frogs and fish. And it doesn't need something big. No bugs. And those green beetles are kind of cool. I kind of like this little owl. Maybe it needs a little owl sitting there. Maybe kind of like she's looking off in the distance at the owl. All right, I'm not sure, so I'm going to fussy cut the owl. Because I'm noticing what's bugging me here about laying down. It was true with the cardinal as well. is the white paper looks extra white against the unbleached muslin, and it's too much white. And so I'm at the moment where this feels close to done. I don't want to stop playing. I'm like, what else can I add? I'm not feeling rushed. I'm not feeling any urgency. I'm not feeling any judgment. I'm just feeling a sense of it's not quite there yet. I'm not quite sure what it needs. And I really don't want to stop playing. And when I get into especially a fun mixed media painty page with lots of layers, I can get into but I just want to keep playing energy. And when I get caught in that energy, I can also get really stuck. Okay, super cute. Love the owl. I can't stop creating with owls lately. They've been showing up a lot. When I get stuck in that energy of I want to just keep playing, but I know I need to let something dry and be patient, it's really important to have something else to work on, right? It's important to have something else to work on. So I usually have two journals. When I'm painting and I want to just keep painting, I will have a blank or an old used canvas nearby that I can use up extra paint on or work on while my main piece is drying. So sometimes there's that sense that I have such limited time for my creative practice and I have to use every single moment. That energy can get in the way as well. So remembering to work on multiple pieces at the same time, I think is another form of not getting overly attached to a page. All right, so this needs to get attached to this. I'm going to attach it later because I want to use some really heavy double stick tape because this is a very thick, beautiful handmade page. But I love this page, whether anyone else does or not, doesn't stop me because this is a page about my connection to nature, living my best life, and also that beautiful connection and nostalgia and memories of my beloved Aunt Dalin, who I spent hours of creative fun with. She was a weaver, and when I was younger, and I got to weave on her loom. And then she got really into gardening and nature and fairies and energy healing. And she just was always doing something creative. She was a quilter and an amazing seamstress. And she just was always such a creative light in my life. And I loved her and miss her. So this feels like now I have used two of those quilt squares, and it feels just like a lovely homage to my aunt and to that nostalgia of being. So both these pages feel really fun that way. All right. So I am going to set this one aside. And I have a little bit of time left to play. So this is where I'm at my happiest is at the beginning of a page, right? It's the endings of the page can feel really tricky. But the endings of pages, oh, I'm going to sneeze. Sorry about that. The smoke is still really bad here, even though we're in good shape. The smoke is tricky. Oh, and I'm just loving flipping through this journal and seeing all the different pieces and pages. This one's making me really happy. And I have a little extra time this morning. What I ended up not loving about this journal was this paper was not my favorite paper. So it's been good to add some collage to this and really thicken up the pages. So my happy place is the blank page. That's not true for everyone. And I never am challenged by how to get going on a blank page because I know that I'm going to cover it up. And I think part of not getting attached to finishing things is knowing when to let go, when to cover something up, when to walk away, right? So again, that checking in with our intuition, that discernment piece becomes essential, both from a critical eye and a making sure that we're releasing any judgment of ourselves. And I had over here, what have I got over here? So I was working on dyeing some fabric and I was dyeing some lace that I had, and it made such this beautiful bit of collage here. This looks like maybe something fun to start with. I like this one too. I saw a piece of painty leftover deli paper where I was just cleaning something off. And so a great way to start a page, this feels really thick, like it could be its own page, but I want to get some collage down on this and prep a page for next week so that when I come and sit down ready to go on Tuesday morning, perhaps I already have something to respond to. And my first thought was, oh, I really want to get painty this morning. And then I remembered the feel of the paper and I'm like, painty is not the direction I want to go with this paper. But I've got a few just bits and pieces of collage paper and my matte medium. So I want to get something down. And when I come back on Tuesday, I'll have a place to start and something to respond to rather than simply a blank page. See what else we got here. These feel like top images. This stencil here is really drawing my attention. I've got some paint markers that are spilling out everywhere. All right. Those are kind of interesting together. I like these little bits of gold sparkly in the background. I'm just looking. Sorry about that. Thank you, Becky. I think I stepped on my microphone when I was digging around for paper. Apologies. So I'm just using bits and pieces of paper that are lying around in my studio on my desk. Again, I'm placing them, but I'm not being too intentional about it, but I'm thinking about moving colors and textures around. I'm definitely loving, I think, that pop of yellow in there. I'm sort of tearing things different shapes, have the pages going different directions. Okay, this definitely needs some book paper added to it. And normally I keep a book on hand just for that purpose. There it is. I love working with book papers because the book papers, it's not as much about the words as it is about the texture and the marks they make. And then sometimes there's some cool words, like the thing that pops out to me here is being a Canadian by birth. My husband is Canadian by birth. My kids have dual citizenship. Again, making things just slightly different in size and shape so they don't all start to look the same. Maybe leaving a little open space in the center. And actually it needs one more, at least one more piece of that green. So I'm going to take some matte medium. This texture piece I love, but I think it's for an upper layer perhaps. So I'm going to hold on to that, and it's starting to feel maybe a little brown. And look at that. Look, it makes a really kind of cool frame right there in the center of that spread. That's really interesting. All right. And I've been so focused on sort of intuitive collage. I haven't done like an actual just kind of fun mixed media page in a while where I start a little bit differently and more abstract. And one of the things that as we're working on a page and we're asking that question of how do I know when it's finished, we can look at a page and ask ourselves, is it too busy? Is there something here that I need to calm down? Am I holding on too tightly to a part of the page? So what happens is there's a mark or a little bit of color or something that we just love, but it actually is detracting from the whole. And so I encourage you to, again, bring that eye of discernment. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to stick a page under here so I don't glue all my pages together. Bringing that eye of discernment and asking myself honestly, am I overly attached? Am I overly attached? Is there really something here I need to paint over and release? Like when we add all of this collage, by the time I finish this spread on Tuesday, what might happen is that I thought I had one more piece of yellow over here, maybe not, is that I might not see any of this collage. It just becomes texture and part of the underpainting. And I can get in that zone of, but wait, I love that piece. But wait, I don't want to cover that up. I don't want to lose all that beautiful texture that I just worked so hard to put down on there. And yet I know the piece will be better if I let it go, right? If I let it go. So paying attention to, am I getting overly attached here to any or all of the pieces, the marks, the colors? What do I need to let go of? And this is a fun way to sit if you're feeling creatively stuck and you don't have any idea where you want to go next in your art journal, just glue shit down. Um, this is all attached here, but I want to stick this piece of paper under there. Like literally just look around your desk. We all have scraps and bits of things lying around. Give yourself permission to just glue stuff down, get it on the page. It creates a really fun place to start. And remember that sometimes beginnings are just as hard as endings. And notice your own, where do you have the most resistance? Do you have the most resistance at the beginning or the end? Mine tends to come more at the end. I love the beginning part. I even really love the messy middle of a piece. And then I find the endings challenging because of this. How do I know when it's done? Or what I can see in my mind's eye, or something, even with that artist eye of discernment, I know something's not quite right, but I'm not a good enough artist to fix it, right? Like there's a line or a perspective, and I'm just kind of in that energy of, but wait, it's not quite right. And that's where we really have to stay connected to our own intuition. How are we feeling inside? What judgments are we bringing to a piece? Because when we notice the judgments, we can address them. And when we can address them, we can release them. We can remind our inner critic that we got this, that we're okay, that we're safe, that we're not in this for the game of getting it perfect, but for really being in the joy and the magic of the creative process. What I learn about myself every time I sit down to the page is priceless. All right, fun place to start. Get that back out of there. Maybe I'm going to leave it in there. Let's see. Don't want to get glue on that other page. So now I have this, good morning, Carol, this pages that are begun. And I have pages today that are finished. And it feels like a productive time where I was able to tap into beginnings and endings, right? So back to our page that feels complete, at least for now, and a page that feels fresh and new and ready to figure out what the next level is, what the next layer is. When I sit back down next week, and I'm asking myself right now, I'm like, oh, I want to stick that stamp on there. And then I'm asking myself, am I going to be willing to let that stamp go later on when I paint over this page? Because I can tell you my next step is probably going to be adding some acrylic paint over the top of this, or maybe doing some stamping and stenciling. Not sure. We'll see where we get to, but I'm complete for now. So thank you for being here. Happy Thursday. Have a great rest of your day and your weekend. I will see you all live next Tuesday. And thanks for being here. And I'd love to hear, if you're watching the replay, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how do you know when a page is finished? What helps you get to that point where you quiet all of those inner voices and celebrate that you completed something, because completion is a cause for celebration. Thanks, everybody. Great to be with you. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye, everybody.